Sometimes things pop up and unexpectedly you have to address. So Chairman Witt's going to continue to handle what we were working on, and we'll move forward. Representative Standage, would you open us up with a word of prayer, please?
Yes, let's pray. Lord, thank you for this opportunity to serve and this opportunity to be here and represent the people that have elected us. Please be with this body. Help us to make wise decisions. We do a special prayer for our military and first responders. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Ms. Clerk, will you please call roll?
Representative Blackshire.
Here.
Representative Witt. Representative Rafferty. Here. Representative Ensler. Representative Ross. Representative Lomax. Here. Representative Tillman. Here. Representative Nelson. Representative Paramore. Representative Sorrells. Here. Representative Underwood. Representative Standridge. Here. Representative Shaw. Here. Representative Ream. Here. Representative McClamey. Here. You have a quorum.
Thanks. Representative Nelson, welcome to your first financial service meeting. We're glad to have you on board. And also, Representative Lomax, congratulations on being named our majority whip this week. We got a list of things for you to whip up here soon, so we'll get you started on those pretty soon. All right, we're going to start first with HB 55. Since I do not have my vice chair here, I'm going to ask Representative Rafferty if I can turn the gavel over to you, because Representative Hollis was having some, was a little under the weather this morning, so she called and asked me would I carry the bill for her, so I will do that.
All right, very well.
So HB 55, if you remember, this is one we had back several weeks ago about the original language was mandatory for mortgage and financial institutions to be able to accept partial payments on their mortgages throughout the month. We put this in subcommittee, and Representative Hollis worked with representatives from Regions Banks. And Jason, I see you in the front row. Thanks for everything you did to help Representative Hollis on this. And also the Banking Association, everybody pulling together, plus with the credit unions. I have a substitute, and what the substitute's going to do, it's still the premise of the same original bill, but basically it makes it now voluntary for any credit unions or financial institution to be able to offer this. So basically it would just be an upsell marketing product if an institution decides to do this to offer it for their customers. So that is the premise of the substitute on HB 55. So I guess first off, can we have a motion?
Thank you. Yes. All right, do I have a motion to adopt the sub?
Move that we adopt the sub.
All right, we have a first by Shaw, a second by Tillman. Vote? All the ayes, okay. Thank you, all right. Ayes have it. Yeah, right, okay, motion for final passage, or for favorable report.
As substitute.
As substituted. All right, that was first by Standridge, second by Tillman. All right, and what say the committee?
All in.
Ayes. All right, nays. Very good. Ayes have it.
All right. All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to call the next bill SB 15. Senator, thanks for coming to hang out with us for a little while today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me here this morning. Feel like I've been spending all session hanging out in state government, but this one is here because I am the Senate representative on the Uniform Law Commission. My former wing woman, as I called her, was Representative Allman. She left me, but she was handled a lot of my bills in the House and also was the representative on the Uniform Law Commission for the House. This is a bill, and for those of you that don't know, that's an organization that, you know, you've heard of the Uniform Commercial Code, I'm sure, in this committee. That's their big crowning achievement. They developed the Uniform Commercial Code, and they make changes to a lot of the laws that are developed across the country to try to provide some uniformity between the states. This is an alternative to bankruptcy. It is a states' rights situation where the state would be able to have a provision that would allow people that are in financial distress to do something outside of bankruptcy. It does not override bankruptcy. Federal law trumps. So federal law for bankruptcy, anybody that wants to file bankruptcy, you know, involuntary bankruptcy, those laws still are there. This just provides a mechanism. So many times I see it kind of almost amounts to a receivership. But so many times I just tell people, You know, only the lawyers make money in these things. And so, and especially when you get into all the bankruptcy situations. So I did run this by Regions Bank as the largest bank in the state of Alabama, and Jason worked with me on an amendment that is worked into the bill that's engrossed before you and the Bankers Association, because I knew this was obviously going to be a big impact, or could be a big impact on our lending institutions. And so there's been no pushback on it since we made these amendments. Be glad to discuss what I can about it, and if someone wants to get real in depth, the Uniform Law Uniform Law Commission actually will send people to testify that are subject matter experts.
Any questions for Senator? All right, if not, I will entertain a motion. All right, favor, second. All right, all those in favor of giving SB 15 a favor report, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, been given a favor report.
Thank you very
Senator.
much,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members.
All right, the next bill we're going to move to SB 247. That will be a public hearing. We will give both sides 3 minutes to speak on this, and when you please approach the mic, please make sure to mention who you are and what organization you are with, please, with that. So with that, Ms. Clerk, will you call first up who?
Ben Moultrie.
I'm Ben Moultrie, and I'm with representing myself, but also the Alabama Independent Pharmacy Alliance.
Okay.
And I do thank you for the opportunity to speak, but sorry, I serve in Northwest Alabama, and I know that it's a little strange that I'm here speaking against something that seems pretty out of my realm, but I'm here today out of concern for patient access, competition, and the long-term intent for the work of this body has already done to protect pharmacies and patients. You know, we battled pretty hard last year, and I don't want to see that work undone unintentionally. As I understand it, Senate Bill 247 allows a nonprofit health insurer to reorganize under a holding company structure. On its face, this may simply be modernization, and my concern is not modernization. My concern is what this structure makes possible over time if clear guardrails are not included in this bill. Holding companies are designed to create flexibility. They allow subsidiaries, affiliates, or expansion into adjacent parts of healthcare. In a market like Alabama, where one insurer already holds significant market influence, structure matters because structure drives behavior. Last year, this legislature passed Senate Bill 252 to address PBM conduct and to restore fairness for pharmacies and patients. That law focused on how PBMs behave, including reimbursement, steering, transparency. I'm sure you remember it well. But it did not address ownership structure or affiliate relationships. Without clear limits, Senate Bill 247 could unintentionally create pathways that could work against the spirit of what this legislature already tried to do. And I would respectfully like to point out as well that this concern is not unique to Alabama. At the federal level, we've seen remarkable movement amongst the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission releasing multiple reports examining the impacts of vertical integration in the American healthcare system and the way that the dollar flows. The opacity that is included in the way that many of these companies are structured significantly increases cost to patients and decreases quality of care and access to care, as well as fairness and reimbursements across the sector. The same has been seen with HHS and CMS and recent reports that they've released and have been releasing for years now. It's important to think in the regards of, is this adding unnecessary opaqueness to an already really cloudy system? I'm not really here to question anyone's intent, and I'm not here to oppose change. I just ask that we protect competition, preserve patient choice, and ensure that independent pharmacies, especially in rural Alabama, can continue to serve our communities by not letting this bill undermine what was accomplished last year through unnecessary complexity. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Ben. Any questions for Ben? All right, we may have some at the end, Ben, but thank you again. All right, Ms. Clerk.
Randy Brinson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Thank you, Financial Service Committee, for letting me address this issue with you. Many of you may know I've been head of the Christian Coalition for the last 20 years. You say, why in the world is Christian Coalition Financial Services Committee? But I'm also a physician. I've also been about in every aspect of healthcare that you can imagine. In college, I sold healthcare insurance. I've worked for a pharmaceutical company. I did a startup pharmaceutical company, which became the fastest growing healthcare company during the 1990s. I was Governor Fob James' healthcare advisor in the late 1990s. And one of the crowning jewels of our work is the setup of the state wellness building. We actually created that for the state employees as a way of cost savings for the members of the SEIB. Question, so why am I here? Well, the question is, basically I want to echo what the pharmacist just said. It's exactly what we're doing. These types of maneuvers that insurance companies are doing are to increase vertical integration. And vertical integration you would think would make more competition, but actually makes less competition. And is responsible, since Obamacare has been passed, for the growing and expansion of the cost of health care. I can just give you one simple example. As a physician, as a gastroenterologist, when I was in private practice, if you'd come to me and had a endoscopy, upper endoscopy, my charge would have been $350. If you go to Huntsville or you go here in Montgomery or even somewhere else where the physician is employed by that healthcare institution, now becomes a surgical service. That exact same service is $2,300. So this is what's happening with our healthcare. So the reason I mention this is that during this past session, because of the problems that have been going on in healthcare, because of the things with the Obamacare exchanges and things like that, I voiced concerns to the membership of this body and Blue Cross Blue Shield representatives regarding the instability of rising healthcare premiums, increasing gaps in coverage. This has been exacerbated by lack of action regarding healthcare premium subsidies as far as the Obamacare exchanges that were enacted during the pandemic. When these subsidies were expired, premiums skyrocketed to many of the people, including my son, to about $1,700 a year. Because of lack of federal action in this particular instance, states began enacting their own legislation to address this problem. Christian Coalition began to search the best policy directives to help alleviate families that were having to decide whether to even maintain coverage. This exact body has been tasked with meeting the overall health care needs of our entire state. This includes obligation of PHEP, SEIB, Medicaid population. Each of these entities have requested large increases in their subsidies from the legislature, taking away financial resources for other functions. It is with this background that SB 247 needs to be deeply examined. During debate in the Senate, the sponsors shared that this bill during this debate in the Senate, sponsors shared that this bill was necessary to maintain Blue Cross Blue Shield's competitiveness, stimulate economic activity, and improve financials for the company so that premium structures could be maintained. However, when I specifically questioned these people, this was something different.
Thank you, Dr. Brinson. I do have a couple questions for you before we start.
Yeah.
Number one, I think if we were on the House floor as a debate now, how I'm seeing the bill, I think I would have probably stopped you in the middle if I was the speaker and asked you to stay germane to the bill, because I think the topic of what you did had absolutely no, your time's up.
Okay.
I think that I would ask to stay germane to the bill because, as I understand it, this has nothing to do with health care cost or anything with that. That's number one. Number two, I was reading through the letter. And I'm sorry, guys, y'all don't see me getting like this much, but I'm at that point right now. The part about you being appalled about the maneuvering, let me tell you something about that. Where were you on February the 4th?
What do you mean by that?
That's when the bill was in Senate committee, this same bill.
Right.
Where were you the 17th of February?
Well,
when this same bill was in the insurance committee in this room that we passed out.
Right.
It also passed out of Senate committee back on the 4th of February. It passed the Senate last week 32-0. So I need some understanding of what's happened, what maneuvering has been done all of a sudden, and we're almost a month past all of this.
My only concern, Mr. Chairman, is that we became more knowledgeable about some of the things, and actually I was talking with Blue Cross about some things that would be beneficial, because most of the states, when they have done these types of transfers, the state has gotten something benefit from Blue Cross Blue Shield. For example, there's something returned, like some other service it was about, and that's what I was trying to negotiate with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And talk to them and say, what about these different things?
Are you negotiating on behalf of the Christian Coalition, or are you as an individual?
Just personally. Because we're talking about a transfer of wealth of like $1.3 billion. And what has happened, and what I was asked, was respectfully asked for the committee, is I sent this stuff, and again, because of time, I thought we had more time to look at this and more debate. There was a couple consultants that actually dealt with state governments regarding these types of transfers. Missouri, Pennsylvania, other things where these things have happened. So what I was trying to do is trying to find a win-win for everyone. where Blue Cross could have these things so they could become more competitive, if that was what needed, but also ensure that the state got some kind of benefit to help improve reducing premiums for people that are expanding and things like that, looking at new ways. And actually, Ted and I have been discussing that for about 2 weeks. So that's why I thought there'd be more time because we were in these discussions while this bill was going through. So it's nothing, like I said, I told Ted, I don't have anything against them particularly. I'm just trying to make sure the state gets something. And when we open this Pandora's box by lifting these different restrictions and changing the status of Blue Cross, what happens? What's the next thing happen? What's the next thing going to happen? And unfortunately, many of the legislators, we don't have all that information available to you.
Is the stature that Blue Cross is trying to change, is that the same? Are they different now than the other insurance, what they're trying to do? Do other insurance agents, do they have the ability to go off and acquire others that they want to now?
Yeah, well, if you change it, what happens? You change the guidelines. And like I said, I've just got some back.
I'm just saying compared to today, apples to apples today, can fill in the blank insurance company that exists in Alabama have a holding company and make other acquisitions today?
Not under the typical things that I know from what Blue Cross wants to do. They want to do it so they can have other for-profit things. So you have a nonprofit, you have these other for-profit ventures. What they did in Missouri was very creative. They had just the opposite. They had Blue Cross become a for-profit entity. They created a market valuation of that, okay? And then 80% of that stock went into a foundation that dealt with state issues that dealt with funding, things we face every day. Medicaid, for example, people aren't eligible for Medicaid, people that were underinsured, people that are in high-risk pools. That money has gone into that foundation to address those issues. And today, that's been 25 years. Now that's the largest foundation, one of the most successful foundations meeting healthcare needs for the state, Missouri, very similar like Alabama, than in the whole country. And this in Missouri. So I'm just saying there's some creative things that can be done that address all these other issues that we have. That's why they're tied together, because Blue Cross Blue Shield is such a dominant player in the market here in Alabama. They administer PHEP, they administer the SEIB, all these other things. They are the dominant player. So what happens in Blue Cross in one instance also impacts these other things that the state funds.
All right. Any other questions? Representative Underwood?
Hey, I appreciate you being here, sir. I know we all have busy lifestyles, and I appreciate you coming to address this committee. I was just noticing in almost the last paragraph, you referred to mandates, being issues. And I'm sorry, it's like I would finally like to remind the committee the words of President Trump. It's in that paragraph, you referred to healthcare costs, coverage, and outgrowth of Obama mandates.
Yes.
Do you see anything in this bill as a mandate?
No,
I'll make sure I know what you're referring to.
Here's what I'm concerned about. The whole thing, if you listen, unfortunately, y'all didn't get to see much of the State of the Union last night. But one of the big things he said, and the things that President Trump has said over and over, which is correct, that these huge subsidies that came out of Obamacare go to the insurance companies, not to the individuals. That money goes to and the idea is to allow them to reduce premiums, okay? President Trump has been saying that needs to go to the individuals to provide marketplace solutions for insurance. I believe that still is a long-term solution.
But does that refer to this bill necessarily? I'm just wanting to make sure I understand what you're saying.
What I'm saying is as mentioned with the other person that spoke, the pharmacist, whenever you expand the ability to do vertical integration, you create less competitiveness. You create market consolidation. And that's going to affect pharmacists, and affect healthcare delivery and everything else. It's going to make it more expensive in the end of the day. This bill opens the door. It doesn't say they're going to do it, but allows the door to be open for that to happen. You're talking about $1.3 billion being transferred from Blue Cross to another entity, holding company.
Do you see this as a pro or anti-free market?
I think this is an anti-free market.
You think it's anti?
It creates less competition. It makes the insurance company being more powerful.
Vertically, you mean?
Vertical integration, for all the same reasons that the pharmacist was talking about.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Any other question?
Yes, Representative McClammy?
I have the same concerns as you, Chair. First of all, this letter actually made my decision. Made it kind of worse for me because, as he stated, this went through the Senate and then it was unanimously voted upon. But now we're asked to put this on hold because you have gotten some studies done that you're waiting to get back. Mm-hmm. But then also in your letter, you state that you've been speaking with us through this session or others have been speaking to us. I'm just wondering why, if you knew there were concerns through the session, why are we still waiting for analysis? I think those analyses should have been done, been presented to the Senate.
Well, that's true. That's true.
I mean, it's just called preparedness, I guess I would
Well,
say,
let me-
especially knowing this
let me-
is
let me put it this way.
you know, we've been in fast track session.
Well, because in my view is that there was a lot of things happening at the same time, and we were looking at this maybe an avenue to basically create some more, some other avenues as far as using this as a fulcrum to look at other ways of expanding care. For example, I'll give you an example. Okay, one example is if you look at the reason why Obamacare has.
Are we going back to the State of the Union from last night?
What's that, dear?
I said you're going back to the State of the Union from last.
No, I'm talking about what's happening here in Alabama. Okay, so what happened because there was no federal action on that. Okay, on the subsidies as far as the COVID, the enhanced subsidies. What happens? The premiums went up. Okay, automatically for everybody in the state of Alabama. Okay, so what we were working on with Blue Cross was to say, how can we change that dynamic so that we create a high risk pool and other things as part of this whole initiative they want to do to improve care and lower premiums at the end of the day for the same care. That's what I'm concerned about. And I apologize again for the fact that some of this stuff seems like 11th hour. It's not that. It was that I was trying to get this information. And also I will provide committee our first analysis of this bill, because all during this time I was trying to do this. When things are really going fast through the legislature, and you've got other things you're thinking something's not going quite that fast, where you have time to look through this. I was not there. I'm not a professional lobbyist or anything, but I do have a lot of knowledge on these particular subject matter. And I'm just concerned about what we open this Pandora's box, which is a one-time thing, what the actual thing, what the end results will be. And I still work with the lobbyists with Blue Cross to this, so we can make this a little bit better.
Dr. Brinson, thank you. I will say this, though. You may not be a professional lobbyist, but you did a pretty good job of spinning up and churning up the State House after 6 o'clock last night. So kudos to you on that. That absolutely happened. All right. Thank you for your time. I think you got some calls you need to get back to. So, Ms. Clerk, will you call the next person, please?
Ted Hollis.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you. I'm not really sure where to start, to be honest. I'll start by saying this. Apparently, y'all have a letter expressing objections to this bill. I have not seen that letter. I have not been told what the objections that Mr. Brinson has to this bill. It sounds like there's a lot of things about Obamacare subsidies and mandates. As has been pointed out, none of that has anything to do with this legislation. This is as complex as it is because it's a bunch of corporate law. It's actually a pretty simple bill. It puts Blue Cross in the same position that every other insurance company is already in the state of Alabama, which is the ability to operate through a holding company. It makes no changes whatsoever to the existing Blue Cross entity. So Blue Cross, for historical reasons, is incorporated under Title 10A as a healthcare services corporation with the purpose to provide healthcare services to our subscribers, the people who purchase our health insurance. What that does is it limits some of the things that we can do, and one of those limitations is go outside the state to acquire another Blue Cross plan. What we're seeing nationwide in this environment is consolidation of Blue Cross plans around the country, and there's a reason for that. While we seem very big in Alabama, we do have about 1.9 million subscribers here in Alabama. That's about 40% of the population. But while we seem very big here in Alabama, our competitors are United Healthcare and Aetna and Cigna. Those companies are massive compared to us. United Health insures 50 million people around the country. So while we seem very big here, we really aren't. And so nationwide, Blue Cross entities are consolidating. Back in the 1990s, there were 77 Blue Cross plans around the country, and today there are 29, right? There are only about 20 single state Blue plans, which is what Alabama is today, but that won't be around that much longer. Maybe it's 10 years, but at some point there won't be single state Blue plans. What we're trying to do with this legislation is put ourselves in a position where we can stay Alabama-based, Alabama-focused, but increase our ability by combining, affiliating, merging, whatever it might be, with another state's plan, but stay Alabama focused. This bill has protections in it, all right? The holding company has to remain the owner of the Blue Cross plan. It can't be sold. If it is sold, it would trigger the Department of Insurance's processes under 27-29-3, which requires DOI approval. So we can't be sold. It has protections with respect to the assets that can be transferred. There's an initial transfer threshold that can't be exceeded, and in the years following that, without DOI approval, the health plan can't transfer more than 3% without DOI approval. Nothing about this legislation changes the way that Blue Cross, the health plan, will operate. And I say to the very reasonable concerns expressed by Mr. Moultrie, this has nothing to do with anything with the PBM legislation that you passed last year. Blue Cross, the health plan, will remain in every single way subject to that law with no changes whatsoever. This is not about vertical integration. In fact, an amendment was put on in the Senate that prohibits the holding company from acquiring any healthcare providers in the state of Alabama.
Right. Time. All right.
Anybody, so I apologize, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right. Questions for Mr. Osmond? Go ahead.
Just that last comment, you said that the amendment prohibits from acquiring medical providers in the state. Can you tell me just a little bit more about what that means? Is that the holding company or Blue Cross as it exists today?
It's a great question, Representative, and I appreciate it. The amendment that was put on in the Senate prohibits the holding company, if created, from acquiring certain entities, healthcare providers, hospitals, physicians' offices, that sort of thing. Also, other insurance companies operating in the state of Alabama. So the argument that Mr. Brinson made that this decreases competition is not true. In fact, the holding company cannot, under this legislation, acquire an insurance company that operates in the state of Alabama. So there's not a risk of consolidation here in Alabama. Now, the health plan, Blue Cross entity, this would create another entity, the holding company, but underneath it, the health plan would exist as it exists today for the purposes of providing healthcare services to our subscribers. That health plan, and there is an amendment that the Medical Association is considering that would allow the holding company to purchase physician practices. It's not something we want to do, so I would argue the amendment is a little bit contrary to our desires, but even if we did want to do it, the health plan, not the holding company, the health plan, can acquire healthcare practices today and will be able to acquire healthcare practices if this legislation is passed.
That was the answer I was looking for, and I was just curious how that worked. Have you done that before?
We have not. We
just curious. I didn't know.
Not a part of our business model.
Okay.
We've been in existence for 90 years with that authority, and it isn't something we've done. It's not something we're considering doing, which is why we had no problem with the amendment in the Senate.
Does it seem, I do have a question. I guess I'm asking, number one, would there be a separate board of directors and oversight of this new holding company? What would be the executive structure? So
the board of directors for the holding company would be identical to the board of directors for the Blue Cross plan. So it would be an identical board of directors. There would be oversight through the Department of Insurance. We would be required to file annual consolidated financial statements that the holding company would have to file, detailing what the holding company owns, operates, that sort of thing. So yes, there would continue to be oversight. And again, the health plan itself continues to be fully subject to all of the rules, regulations, taxes, oversight by this legislature that it is today. None of that changes whatsoever.
I guess I want to make sure I'm clear for our committee members as well too. The why. The why from what you just said is the why because you as an organization feel if you don't establish a holding company that gives you the ability to go off and make an acquisition, you will be acquired?
We feel as though, given the consolidation in the market, at some point we'll be left with that as the only option, correct? And we can't do it today without this legislation because through an accident of history, we are in corporate incorporated under Title 10A, which is purely for healthcare service corporations. And allowing us to operate under the holding company model will give us the resources we have to go and acquire something that exists out of state.
This bill doesn't pass, stays as is. Acquisition of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama happens. What does that look like to the state of Alabama?
Well, I mean, it's certainly not something that we would welcome. It would be a last resort. And I'm not suggesting that this is around the corner, that somehow this is a year, 2 years, 5 years, however long. But I mentioned earlier, there are about 20 single state Blue plans. In the last 2 years, Blue Cross Vermont was acquired, Blue Cross North Dakota was acquired, Blue Cross Kansas City was acquired, and Blue Cross Arkansas was acquired. So that's 4 potential partners in the last 2 years that have come off the board, so to speak. So now we're down to 20 single state plans. Each time an opportunity arises and we're not prepared to take advantage of that opportunity, that's an opportunity that goes away and never, ever comes back. That's why we're doing this, and that's why we want to do this now.
Any other questions? Representative Nelson?
So let's talk about from a positive standpoint, and I had a couple of questions. From an economic standpoint, how many people are employed by Blue Cross Blue Shield here in the state of Alabama?
We employ more than 4,000 people here in the state of Alabama. As I mentioned earlier, we insure about 1.9 million people, about 40% of the population. We pay about $70 million in state taxes through the insurance premium tax into the general fund every single year. All of that, should things change, would be up in the air. $70 million through the insurance premium tax. We are the largest payer of the premium tax in the state of Alabama. The insurance premium tax is the largest single source of funding for the general fund.
Awesome. If we were to acquire other plans, would that employment, I know that's very hypothetical, but would those people be employed here in the state of Alabama to, run those plans as well?
Right, so that's a great question, and it's exactly the intent of this, is that we want to stay Alabama-based. What we don't want is to be acquired somehow by another company in Indiana or New Mexico or whatever, and have some of our 4,000 employees laid off and those functions taken over by another plan. We want to be in a position of being an acquirer or not an acquirer.
Thank you so much.
All right, any other questions? All right, well, what I'm going to do on this is, and I'm going to make sure I'm clear on this. I see Nico sitting back there where he didn't sign up. I'm going to carry this over for us to vote next Wednesday, but Nico, I want to make sure you know that you coming and talking and being germane to the bill and staying on topic. We had lots of conversation the wee hours last night, but thank you for staying on the bill as its intent and understanding and representing your individuals and what you really we're trying to explain for them. So with that, we'll carry this over to next week. Any other questions? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn. All right, thank you.